So I can communicate to unborn children. It's something that I don't know how to explain how it happened. I just realized I could because they started contacting me. And I guess I wanted to share a little bit about what I've learned from the communication I've received with unborn children. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to, share what I can so that you can also learn a little bit. I hope that you don't think it's creepy or anything. I don't know why that word came through, but let's begin, shall we? So first off, how do I speak to unborn children? Why do I think I speak to unborn children? Let's start there. A good place to start. Okay. All right. So, well, in previous videos, I've mentioned shapeshifters. I've mentioned galactic beings. I've mentioned this. You probably think I'm crazy. Don't worry, I do too, to some extent. But functional craziness is great. It's very useful. Now, I realized that I could, hear, I guess, was clairaudient, and I could hear spirits pretty clearly if I tuned in and opened myself to them. Have discernment, know what you're listening to and where they're coming from and what the spirit's intention is. Biggest things I can say. Now, with unborn children, for the most part, I really can't say I was looking to speak to them. It wasn't like I was actively oh, I'm going to speak to them. But I do know that there were some instances in my childhood where I would speak to my unborn big brother, and I knew what they looked like, at least in the spirit, and how that would have manifested in the flesh. I also knew, that their essence was always there and was something that, was understood with my siblings as well on a soul level. Okay, so let's move a little forward now. It really wasn't until a few years ago that I really started tapping more into my spiritual gifts, and for whatever reason, the amplification of clairaudience got really big. I started hearing galactic beings like they were on a radio talking to me. Sometimes it'd be shapeshifters, and they'd be speaking through normal everyday sounds, ruffling of leaves, the fan, the radio, the TV, other people's phones. It was really interesting, making these coherent sentences that I felt crazy being able to hear. So when I first heard Unborn Child, it was actually, I think, some podcaster was talking about something. And for whatever reason, this child said, the spirit was like, they're speaking. Listen to this. This is a message. And they tuned in to what was being shared in this podcast for a few sentences or so. And then they were like, yep, that's it. Now, pretty much the unborn child explained in those few sentences how they agreed to their being here on Earth, to their manifestation or the experience that they manifested on Earth, even though they never physically came down fully in the flesh. But they still realized and knew that was their mission. They do not hold any resentment against their parents because they knew and they loved them, and they were simply sharing a message. They pray for the growth of both parties, and it was like this beautiful, pure form of unconditional love. This child, this unborn child who doesn't hold any resentment, understands their mission, fulfilled their mission, and wants nothing but love for those involved. It's really crazy. And I'll be real, being at this time where I've had the opportunity to actually facilitate spaces with those who are grieving their unborn child. I never mention it because it's such a sensitive topic. It's not something that I ever mention. I don't ask. I don't pry. It's only something that if the spirit of the child asks me, and talks to me and communicates in some way, hey, can you let my parents know? Hey, if they're themselves aren't opening up to this energy, which to absolutely have discernment, and I can share a message to kind of relieve any energy that needs to be released, then I am thankful. Okay, so speaking of unborn children, I'm not here to teach you how in this video. I'm just here to share what I've learned and what this has looked like for me. Honestly, it's really given me an odd sense of comfort, humility, and awe for the world, as well as deep sadness. So the comfort really comes from understanding that there's so much life after death, that a day of one's death is better than a day of one's birth. And this is a Bible verse somewhere, but I really do understand that, and I become comforted by these unborn children that didn't even have to experience this. Now, of course, I also feel sadness. And the sadness is just, and the humility is also because of what we do as humans, the urges that we fall into that sometimes, and the consequences that happen, and what we as humans, as a collective, humanity as a whole, what we choose to do from the consequences of our own actions. How we sometimes choose to cover it up without fully realizing or acknowledging what has happened or learning the lesson that situation was brought to realize. I think that every unborn child's life is not in vain. I think it has a dramatic impact on the parent's life. Very big. Doesn't matter if they were ever in the physical. Just their spirit has an impact. And their purpose, their soul's mission, does not require them to even step foot on earth. That's how powerful it is. And it does make me a little, I feel humble because we as humans kind of, no pun intended, but we fuck up a lot. And, I think that personally, looking at everything that's happening, here in America with the Roe v. Wade situation, I'm not here to say who's wrong or who's right. I think as humans, we know that we're given opportunity to learn from making choices for ourselves, freedom of choice. Now, when we make a choice and we have this consequence of, let's say, a pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, the easier thing to do for many in society would be to abort the child. Now, when you do such a thing, you do realize what you're doing on some level. Separating this unique soul from yours, and the sacrifice has to be made. A sacrifice has to be made either way at that point. Your choices up until that point have led up to you having to make a sacrifice. It's either the child or parts of your life. So it's really, it is what it is. Now, what I will say is that, this unconditional loving spirit that is brought into your life needs to be acknowledged. And what I wish and pray for any parent out there that has an unborn child, that they acknowledge this child and honor it. Maybe simply just understanding what was a lesson, what consequences, what was a sacrifice, honoring the sacrifice. Taking adequate time to really process those emotions, I think, is the most important thing you can do. I think that by allowing yourself to just be, and don't even have to say anything, you don't have to tell the world, you don't have to tell a single soul what you're feeling or what you're going through. You just have to be there with this being who was brought down from you, from the choices and the situations that came upon in your life, that you helped create this essence, this shard of your own soul, and you have to honor it. You have to honor it. There are so many unborn children's souls on the planet just waiting, I think, for their parents to receive the lesson, to acknowledge the sacrifice that was made and what they have learned. Again, we all, like, life and death, baby. It happens. Nobody's gonna live forever. But my God, acknowledge the life, where it's coming from, how it came here. So important. So that's what I've learned. These children, these unborn kids, are angels. They're really unconditionally loving. They know nothing else. And they love their parents, regardless if they, were executed or, aborted or not. They love their parents. That's all they know. And we can learn so much from coming from an unconditional, compassionate space for everybody involved, all parties, and seeing the world from these eyes of an unborn child. It's never seen, everything in the world, but has this essence so pure within them that it just brings tears to my eyes when I meditate on it, because it's so beautiful. So what I've learned is really practicing that compassion, not seeing or trying to point fingers at this happened because of this, or feeling upset in any way, but really taking accountability for my actions, the choices that I make, the consequences that I will have to face, and how I honor the situations and the sacrifices that are made along the way, because they are to be honored for where we are today. So that's a big one. I think that also it's really, energetically working with parents, on that level. With the few parents that I have worked with their unborn children, it's forgiveness. It's asking for forgiveness from the child's perspective. But really, and let's be honest, it's asking forgiveness from yourself, God, source, really understanding what has gone on here, asking yourself to clear any energy that you may be holding on because trauma bonds, because other situations, and allowing yourself to more freely just travel to the space of unconditional love, of forgiveness, of gratitude, of grace, of peace. And really seeing how every single soul is connected and its role, and respecting each role. When you start to respect, and again, these unborn kids have taught me that even the evilest of people honor that person, honor the role that they're giving. If there was no one of pure evil, then we would never know. We would never have that experience. And that might be something like, yeah, Esther, I don't want that experience. But it's actually something that helps you grow so much, to have such discernment, to be able to understand and practice compassion on a level you may not have even wanted to practice. But guess what? You can, and you're here, and you're strong in your soul and body and mind. And you have such a thing as unconditional love within your being that you can practice. Utilize that. It's powerful. I think the world just needs a little bit more of that, maybe a little bit more of other things to sprinkle around. But yeah, so that's this video. I hope that you found this, food for thought, useful in some way. If you or a loved one is, struggling with anything mentioned in this video, then don't hesitate to reach out. I really do feel thankful to be able to connect and assist people on this level. Again, I don't really ever contact, unborn children unless they contact me and there's a purpose behind it. I don't really think it's right to meddle too much in these little souls that are resting. But yeah, everything has a purpose. Remember it. Be thankful. Practice discernment. And thank you so much for watching. God bless and namaste.